Welcome to the RotoWire Fantasy Baseball Podcast, sponsored by WinBet. I'm Clay Link here with Todd Zola of RotoWire.com and Masters Ball. Great to be talking with you, Todd. Although, in lieu of two starters for next week, we're just going to have kind of an open show, talk about some pickups as we usually do, but just maybe have a little bit of a shorter show today, possibly. But this is the first of three shows for us this weekend, Todd. You and I will be on MLB Network Radio, then tomorrow, then Sirius XM Fantasy Sunday, talking football. I don't really get nervous for these things anymore, but that one has me a little nervous because I don't talk football much.
I was unaware. I don't. It's going to be interesting how the two of us are going to pull off. We got to schedule 4 guests, right? Let's just schedule 4 guests.
I was looking at a couple guests at least.
Oh yeah, we definitely need to schedule some guests. We can still talk. I mean, at least the way it's been, it's 50-50. We can still talk some baseball, but I'm all prepared. No, for sure. We talked some football last week, and I'm still happy they're letting us talk some baseball on the Sunday show. But I was prepared, nice. And I'm a little upset. I thought we were going to talk Cape Cod League starting pitching this week. In lieu of Major League, so I guess I'll have to put my notes away.
Oh, I think we may have lost Todd right there, but that's live podcasting for you. Cape Cod League, there he is.
Myself with that little goofy hand motion to the site, the effect of putting my papers, which I don't have, away. Sorry about that, folks. I don't know what I did.
Well, no problem.
I just my headphones, but I'm plugging them back in. I'm a professional, folks. Professional podcaster, Zola.
We're very professional on this Friday morning show.
Should I hit my microphone?
We've been at it for a couple years, but we're still figuring things out on this end.
I've been at it for 58 years, and I'm still figuring it out.
Oh, yeah. I was thinking, I'm coming up on my 10-year anniversary here at RotoWire. It's crazy how time flies. But, you come up on those big milestones, you start thinking about these things. But, Todd, I was talking with James on Wednesday, and James actually had dropped Vidal Brujan in our stake league. So he was available this week. He was playing the stash game, but then he dropped Vidal Brujan. So he was available. He went for 7. It was kind of a lighter Fab week this week. Fab runs in this league overnight, Thursday, Friday. But Brujan was sent down after that 1-for-3 showing. I guess he went 1-for-6 when you include game 2, but I know he's 1-for-3 with a stolen base in game 1. I expect him to be back today. I've thought that's a possibility. At least that's what I've heard. I know he was the designated 27th man, but I think Brujan is essentially here for good.
That's what the reports have been, right? That it's all administrative and it's just a way of doing it. And they probably doing it this way may have given them an extra day to decide who gets cut, or maybe someone got injured. So it's kind of like putting your guy in your utility spot during the transaction week, so you can make the most flexibility coming out. But anyway, right. And Brujan, like you mentioned, he hit the ground running, right? You got to steal that. He's added power this year, but steals, speed is supposed to be the primary part of his game. So he showed right away he's going to run.
Yeah, you love to see him do that. I am looking to just confirm, but I do think everything I've seen was suggesting that it was just a procedural move.
Oh, it was more than suggesting. Okay. They pretty much came out and said it.
Okay, that's good. I was looking for the tweet.
Mark Tompkins. Mark Tompkins, who's been kind of on top of all this, was pretty definitive. It has, it's not definite, but Tompkins is pretty good about all these things. And by the time, those seeing this live is not going to say it, but by the time some of you folks check it out later, it could be done.
David Price was the top arm this week. He went for 6. Griffin Canning was the corresponding drop there. I suspect he will probably be in the rotation again sometime soon, but I guess this just speaks to how starting pitching is pretty scarce in this league.
Price?
Oh, he's starting today, isn't he?
Yeah, he's starting. Well, he's starting. Yeah, with the asterisk of he's not stretched out.
Mm-hmm.
So the intention
could stretch out from here.
I mean, that's the intention. Mm-hmm. It has to be with now. I mean, aside from Mr. Bauer's problems, Clayton Kershaw's on the IL.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm moving Price over to the rotation on our depth chart right now.
Yay! Yes, as we speak,
making that move
behind the fourth wall. So yeah, he's needed. It's not a luxury at this point. David Price was a luxury. Now he's a necessity.
Yeah,
it's the way it's worked out. And Buehler is obviously well past the innings from last year. So we'll see how he's managed over the second half. So yeah, the Dodgers, who you can never have too much starting pitching. They're the examples. They're they were a bevy of riches. Not so much anymore. Hopefully Kershaw's back. Mm-hmm. And when I say back, it's not his back for a change, right? It's actually his arm. But we haven't heard when was the MRI today. It's I haven't heard any diagnosis really.
Yeah, it looks like he's undergoing that MRI on his forearm today, so we should have more on Kershaw later. So that's good. But you mentioned the innings, and Julio Urias has already blown past his career high. He's already passed 100. Had never previously cleared 80, so I'd imagine they're going to have to take some measures to limit his workload too. So, yeah, there's on paper, such a deep rotation, but every team's depth is tested, and their depth just vanished in a hurry, the Dodgers. But they're still a juggernaut. Cody Bellinger's been kind of sneaky awful. 604 OPS. Has not been pretty for the pitching staff or the offense, really, with Bellinger and Betts underperforming. Bellinger, I'm more worried about than Betts.
Yeah, I believe it was the Miami Marlins pregame show that was focusing on Bellinger and getting a little bit more loft than normal. And I don't think they actually mentioned the fact that is detrimental with the ball they're using this year, but they just wanted to show that he's not hitting fly balls with as much authority, and that hurts power. It hurts, just extra base hits, and home runs are hits too. So it ends up hurting the average. So I haven't verified it or done my own looking at the underlying numbers. Everybody knows I'm into the composite exit or the component average exit velocity. We'll be checking that out, but apparently that was the result of the Miami Marlins broadcasting crew previous to their series, that Bellinger isn't driving the ball as hard. Now, remember, he's coming off an off year last year too, right? I know it was a shortened season, but he played 56 games and a 788 OPS. And the previous season was the crushing year. The one before that was an 813 OPS. So now you have to begin to wonder, is 2019 the outlier? How good is he? So it's going to be interesting, because when we do, projections, if you will, next year, 2 of the 3 years that go into the foundation are going to be pretty poor. Mm-hmm. And it's at least mathematically oriented projections are going to have him, well away from the first round, second round, right? It's going to be 7th or 8th round numbers wise. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with Bellinger.
Yeah, 3 homers this year. It is only 31 games. He was on the IL for a long time, but
even so,
pretty shocking. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, half a year to get it going again. Who's to say what's going to happen? But yeah, I did not have a chance to do it since seeing the pregame, but I did want to do my own kind of analysis on Bellinger, because he could be an important player down the. Is he someone that you want to go out and acquire in a deal, for instance, because there's a good chance whoever drafted him isn't doing so well. So maybe you can, swing a deal.
Behind Price and Vidal Brujan in the RotoWire Stake League this week, Zach McKinstry for 5. I know he hit a big homer earlier this week, so that was nice to see. He hasn't really done much.
It's a 16-team league, so of course it's going to do this. But, weekly when you read these off, this is a big what have you done for me lately sort of league, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
And it makes sense because it's a RotoWire staff league. So a lot of these, I'm sure there's some behind the scenes folks that are constantly doing news updates and keeping, that sort of thing. And not always, the pleasure of us having our mugs on camera like this or voices over the air. There's a lot of people doing the grunt work that are keeping up with this. So it does kind of make sense that's sort of the lean of this league.
Yeah, by the way, it feels like maybe there's a little lag here. Maybe the internet's not the best in the office. So I want to apologize if the listeners are getting some of that. But we'll do our best here. Croyo was a $4 pickup. He's back for your Red Sox. And I have him in the Derek Van Riper's Maki League. And I was kind of liking what I'm seeing from Arroyo. So, yeah, we'll see what he does. I guess he's back earlier this week and homered, so that's good that he hit the ground running in his return.
There's in my end for the apologies. You may be hearing the pitter patter of rain in the background. I closed the window as much as I could, but it's been raining. We're getting the tropical storm remnants up here in New England, so apologize for that. All right, the Red Sox. There's going to be some log jams. This is a good thing, a good problem to have when I wish there were maybe some better players filling up these log jams, but there's going to be some log jams after the break when Tanner Houck's supposed to come up in the rotation. Arroyo is now, back as you mentioned, but with Kiki Hernandez and they sent Michael Chavez down, the potential of Franchi Cordero coming up to play some first base with Bobby Dahlback and still Jeter Downs. There are a lot of players and not that many positions here, so something's got to give. So Arroyo and Hernandez, these guys could be playing. I don't know for a roster spot, but they definitely could be playing for additional playing time at this point because I think there's going to be some changes in the second half.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I actually put in 19 bids last night, and 18 of those were behind a $3 Chad Green. I ended up getting Chad Green for $3. The reason I put so many in was because I thought I wasn't going to get Green. I ended up getting it for $3, which I am happy about. And that actually kind of segues into your latest Z files, which will be up on the site. I got a little preview of it. But what a relief, kind of looking at guys who could help you in the short weeks coming up, or the short week coming up. And also if you can change your lineups for the weekend like we can in this league. I think Green's a great ad, and plus you get the potential for a new closer. I don't know the way things are heading. I don't know if maybe Chapman's hurt, but I think Green needs to be rostered in pretty much every league at this point.
All right, so Chapman is in a bit of a rut. I don't know if he's going to lose his grip on the job, but the YouTube folks saw me do a little visual there, but air quote grip. But if you have to explain it, Zola.
I see.
I
tabbed over, so I didn't see.
If you have to explain it, Zola, it's not funny. Anyway, Green is a good pickup regardless. Gotta believe that, maybe Green closes another time this weekend. I think that you used a break to get Chapman's head on or whatever, and I think he probably picks the job back up after the break. But it's still it's a save, maybe another save over the weekend, maybe two, because Chad Green's a really, really good pitcher. And as I talk about in the piece, there are 6 teams that have 4 games coming out of the break. The one being the Yankees as they play the Red Sox on Thursday. Imagine that, a standalone game on national TV. It's a makeup game. They didn't schedule it that way, to be fair. Why they didn't play doubleheader? Well, why? Because they can have a standalone game on Thursday night, right? Mm-hmm. So the Sox Yankees playing on Thursday, and then they have 4 opportunities, and Detroit, Minnesota, and Miami and Philadelphia have doubleheaders coming out of the break on Friday. So it's a good idea to look for relievers. And what we're talking about here is in leagues where there's a short week. And I was surprised. I did a poll to find out how many leagues are using the I guess 11 days when you include Thursday, the long transaction period. And basically what that means, folks, is there will be an 11-day pitcher rankings coming out next week, but that's neither here nor there. But the point being, if you've got in a league where you've got a couple of roster spots where you can afford to pick someone up, drop, and then replenish them. Using a middle reliever is kind of a cool way to get a couple Ks, help your ERA, maybe pick up a win, and if you use the right player, maybe even get a save. So it's a common ploy in the NFBC. I'm sure you'll see several NFBC-ites tweeting about it over the next couple of days. Those that that like to brag about strategy and not keep it to themselves or get paid to talk about strategy. But yeah, it's something that will happen, and a guy like Green will cost more than a guy like Jonathan Loaiza on the same team, or Lucas Luque, who are also doing the job for the Yankees in their bullpen, getting some strikeouts, and are options for next week.
Yeah, we'll talk more about those relief options later in the show, but more pickups here on the starting pitching side. Tyler Anderson was picked up. I don't know what his schedule looks like, but I imagine he must have a favorable matchup coming out of the break or something. And then Tyler McGill, I know you and Jeff were talking about him on the XM show last Sunday. He was still out there in this league. He was only a $1 ad, so he was not a high priority for me. I think I did have him on my waterfall, but Tyler McGill's, I guess, worthy of attention. Somebody who was just not on my radar coming into the season, but these pop-up guys happen every year, and it seems like he's worth taking seriously.
Yeah. I mean, the Mets, you like the situation. The team is winning. We'll see what happens when they make up. I think there are 8 or 9 games in the hole, if you will, and we'll see what happens at the end of that. Their Pythag, their run differential. Although I was the one that tweeted out, be careful with that, because all the research done on the Pythag, Bill James Pythag, run differential is based on 162 game season, and there's going to be some wacky stuff if you use short samples and try to make some base some conclusions on that. But McGill has got one start against Pittsburgh tomorrow in a doubleheader. Yeah. And I kind of like using my starters in a doubleheader, let them go 5, and you don't worry about the bridge. And with the Mets, you don't want to have to worry about the bridge, and you get right to the closer. Marcus Stroman go in the first game. You mentioned Tyler Anderson. He's matched up against the Mets in that game. I assume, well, one of the 2 games, we have it as the first. Max Kranick going the second game. Anderson then has a second game against the same Mets next week. I think there are four series of sort of rematches around the break where it's kind of a home and home, where the 2 teams are playing. I think the Brewers and Reds are one of them. There's, I think, 4 series where the same 2 teams match up before and after the break, which is unusual scheduling. We'll just leave it at that.
So, yeah, I was looking a little bit at Tyler McGill, not to be confused with Trevor McGill. But, yeah, he's got, the K numbers are what was standing out early on with him. 8 Ks in his second start, then 7. So, overall, he's got a 19-6 K to walk. He has given up 3 homers in as many starts. But, yeah, with that matchup, certainly looks like he's worth picking up. If you can use him for that matchup, then it looks like he's at Reds coming out of the break, Tyler McGill.
Yes.
Sorry?
I'm number scouting, if you will. 25 years old. We only have him in the minors in 2000 this past year. So
yeah,
what has he been doing?
That's a good question. I think I asked James about it, but I can't even remember.
Yeah, I don't know if he was overseas. I'm trying to check out our notes, or if he potentially has been hurt. Yeah, again, this is an interesting show. You're seeing some back. We're doing our research on the show, folks, and changing the site on the show. This is good stuff. But the point, McGill didn't show quite the strikeout ability when he was on the farm. Well, no, actually he did. 42 strikeouts in 26 innings. The point I wanted to make was at 25 years old, he was ahead of the level. So the translation, that we weren't sure about the translation. It's one of those guys where, do you trust the numbers? These strikeouts are strikeouts, or the fact that he was so much older for the level and the fact that he was doing a lot of that work against players that didn't play last year. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of in my head. That's the point I wanted. That's sort of the unknown about McGill. So it's an unknown. It's in this. It's that mentality that we talk about where someone's going to pick him up, and it's just not in my DNA to take a chance on something that I don't know, and I miss out on a lot of players of this nature. Hiskir Unoa was someone in the first half that was like this. So, but right as you say, he's striking guys out at the major league level and not walking many. So this is your chance.
Yeah, sometimes, you got to just act. I do think he's a little risky, but just because he is an unknown. But
yeah.
In the Mets system. So I don't know, maybe there's an ID matching issue or something, but yeah. Or maybe he just wasn't in our database when he was pitching back then or something. But he was a 8th round pick in 2018. But yeah, not a highly touted prospect. But if you want to take a chance on Tyler McGill, I think you're justified. Before we move on, a real quick word from our sponsors. And now we're back on the RotoWire Fantasy Baseball Podcast, sponsored by WinBet. Clay Link here with Todd Zola. In lieu of 2-start starters, we're just taking a look at some pickups, and we'll also talk about Todd's latest Z-Files column, looking at some relief pitchers who could help you in the short week. Adam Ottavino fits that mold if he's still out there. James Anderson picked him up for $1. He was on my list. I think you tweeted earlier this week that, Ottavino as the number 2 may end up with more saves than a lot of teams' number 1. So I think he's just a nice arm to have, even if he's on your bench a lot of weeks.
Yes, aside from the little weirdness with Shohei Ohtani, that was kind of weird. It's kind of out of character. You got a little Ottavino got a little bit overly enthusiastic after striking Ohtani out on his birthday, and he kind of let him know, and it was just weird. It was not too much was made of it, but anyway, the point being, Ottavino's getting the Red Sox are providing so many save opportunities. Barnes is getting to work that Ottavino's found a place for 8 saves so far. So I mean, he may end up with 10 or 12 or 13. That's going to be more than a few teams' as number 1 guy. So he's just like you mentioned, a nice guy to have on your team.
Yeah, I remember Adam Ottavino kind of caught some headlines when he said a couple years ago that he could easily strike out Babe Ruth, and I guess he kind of just did that. And so he must have been excited that he was justified in saying that, because he kind of
actually, it wasn't a strikeout.
Babe Ruth. Oh, it wasn't.
It wasn't a strikeout. Part of the issue was, or part of the reason why people were so upset was Ohtani lined a 100-mile-an-hour line drive into the shift. It was the last out of the game. He didn't strike him out. He is like, he I don't want to say got lucky, but because it's luck that the defense is in the right spot. I mean, there's a lot of scouting that goes into that. But no, the point being, it was just weird. He just happy birthday bitch or something like that. And I don't think anything was meant by it. But of course, Angels fans went through the roof. Red Sox fans saying calm down. And the rest of the country could care less.
Yeah, so I guess it's still TBD as to whether Ottavino could strike out Babe Ruth. So
yeah, exactly.
If it was a grounder, I think he probably could, just given the stuff.
Heath Hembree, Babe Ruth's going to be well over 100 years old.
Yeah, I think he could do it now. Looking.
The old joke.
Most likely.
The classics.
I picked up Heath Hembree for $1, so I was kind of happy with that. I didn't expect to get Chad Green or Heath Hembree. I know Amir Garrett's gotten a few, but Hembree seems to have the lion's share, I'd say, for right now. And I know TJ Antone got delayed, so he may be a drop, honestly. And Hembree just not great, but maybe one of those guys who kind of like the group that you wrote about who can help, short window to help.
He didn't make my list primarily because the idea was a churn and burn or whatever the expression is, and with all those walks, he could do more damage in one outing than he can help. So that goes the same with any of these relievers, obviously. But I did pick relievers that have been pretty reliable, at least lately. We get one outing over, could occur to anybody, but especially with Hembry's walks, the Heath Hembry experience may not be as advantageous. Now, I picked him up in Otno. I don't remember if it was my points league or my Roto league, but relievers are when everybody starts 5 relievers, you get pretty thin. So I missed out on the guy I wanted more. I forget who it was. Another potential closer. I think it was Miami, Anthony Bender. Someone outbid me, but I did end up with Hembry, so I'm crossing my fingers.
Yeah, I know that with Sims out and Antone, it looks like there's a little window, and I don't know if those guys are going to be ready right after the break either. So we'll have to wait and see. Also picked up Jared Dyson for $0. We're into the $0 range now. Actually, no. Before that, for $1, Ranger Suarez. He did make your article, did he not?
He did, and I think he's the closer, the reliever. I don't want to say came out of nowhere, but usually when you're thrust into the reliever role, closer role, you've at least been getting saves. You've been working in leverage. He didn't have a hold. Suarez did not have a hold yet this season. So it was just, I think it was just more of, what Girardi's saying, we got nobody else. This guy's doing well. I'm going to give Ranger Suarez a shot. And who knows if he runs with it. Hector Neris, Alvarado, they may have more strikeout potential, but they're having other issues. So 31 Ks and 32 2/3. It's not dominant. It's just, it's a batter. After next game, he could have a battered inning, strikeout a battered inning, but it's right in that cusp. So, but he did Suarez did get a save on July 3rd. The team has not given any save opportunities since then, but based upon usage patterns, I think it was even last night in a blowout, I think Neris pitched the 8th and Suarez the 9th. So sometimes you can just tell by the relative order that usage patterns are saying that Suarez remains the guy. Maybe we'll have a shot over the weekend because Philly is one of those teams that has 2 games, doubleheader next Friday. And who's to say right coming out of the break, but I've been tracking it, and the few times that a team's had a chance to sweep a doubleheader this year, I think only like once, maybe twice, they've used the same closer. And I think it was maybe Hendricks was one, Liam Hendricks. Teams just aren't going to the same closer twice in the doubleheader.
Mm-hmm. By the way, I was just making some adjustments to the grid because Snell not pitching today.
Yeah,
he didn't feel great. Yeah, I guess they ruled him out, not pitching again before the break. He threw from flat ground Thursday, 4 days after walking more than he struck out. This according to the San Diego Union Tribune. So they noted that Craig Stammen got the start the last time Snell was scratched, so maybe it's him in a bullpen day today. But we'll have to wait and see on confirmation for tonight. But Musgrove Weathers will follow on Saturday, Sunday, respectively. But I just wanted to let you know that's why I wasn't fully zoned in on what you were just saying, Todd. No disrespect meant. Let's see here. Ben Gamel was picked up, and you know who the corresponding drop was there? It's kind of sad, Todd. Yermin Mercedes.
I figured you're going to go like Olivares or one of my guys. Well, I mean, Mercedes is, he's not, unless you're in a AAA league, you're not getting stats right now, are you?
You pretty much just have to drop him. So that's not. I probably shouldn't be surprised. But
some of the blow, with Mercedes, if you were able to be using him at catcher late, for the back half of his slide, at least you're losing catcher stats. You're not using, utility stats. So that softens the blow a bit. But some of the upstarts, Adolis Garcia maintain their performance. Others, Yermin Mercedes, have fallen off. There's just no rhyme or reason. We're going to try to think we know the reasons and talk about draft strategy next year. It's baseball, folks. That just happens.
Absolutely. By the way, I just want to circle back to Ranger Suarez real quick because you kind of said closer, then you corrected yourself. Do you not think that Suarez is the guy? Because I kind of
no, I do. I don't know. I corrected myself. They just, a matter of fact, I doubled down. I mean, usage patterns are showing that he still is. They just haven't had an opportunity since July 3rd. Last night's game, I think 8-0 Philly, the Brad Miller blowout. When Girardi stacked his lineup against Alzolay with lefties, even though short sample platoon, he left McCutchen and Hoskins on the bench because a rookie is getting right-handers out. That just doesn't make sense. It's like everybody says it's analytics. It's actually anti-analytics because the analytics says that's too short a sample to make that judgment to sit Andrew McCutchen, who's been crushing it lately. But anyway, Brad Miller saved Girardi's bacon with 3 homers. But the point being, in the blowout, I think Neris pitched the 8th and Suarez the 9th. And that, even though they weren't a save situation, that order suggests Suarez is still the closer. Yeah,
it's a very ugly situation there. But another guy that you wrote up, he wasn't picked up in the stake league. But Bailey Falter was the guy you mentioned kind of behind Ranger Suarez in your article this week. Again, that'll be up soon. But Bailey Falter catch your eye lately? What do you like there?
No, but again, Philadelphia is one of the teams with 2 game, well, a doubleheader, an extra game next week coming out of the break. So I focused on those 6 teams. I don't know if Falter would have made the list. 5.17 ERA isn't going to catch anyone's eye. 1.15 WHIP is certainly good. He got crushed. Falter did earlier this week. The Cubs lit him up for 5 runs. It's just basically he gives you length, bulk relief. So he's not going to, in the 3-game series or 3 days, he may pitch 1 of the 3, but he may give you 2 or 3 innings. And in 1 4-inning appearance, he fanned 6. In a 3-inning appearance, he fanned 5. He could give you multiple strikeouts. The risk is obviously there because in that last outing against the Cubs, he gave up 5 runs in just 1.2 innings. But I don't know if he would have made the list had I not been trying to focus on the theory of Detroit, Minnesota, Miami, Philadelphia, and then the Red Sox and Yankees having the extra game. But sure, I mean, the allure is a multi-inning stint.
Taylor, I'm trying to be sure I get not Taylor, Tyler Wells for Baltimore was picked up $0. Maybe he fits that mold too because it's Baltimore.
He's in the piece.
Okay, yeah, he was picked up by the Orioles fan here, John McKechnie, but John, by the way, I want to give him some love because he has shot up to the number 2 spot. He's leapfrogged James. He is right behind Aaron Quinn in the stake league. So I'm not going to label this pickup as a homer pickup by any means. Tyler Wells in the mix to close or more just it looks like he's mostly pitching lower leverage.
Yeah, it doesn't have a hold yet. A hold yet. But he's pitching well. We know the Orioles have been siphoning through closers. Cole Sussler. Cole Sussler is the one I was thinking about. Not that people care that I missed out in Otno. It wasn't.
Sulser.
Sulser. Yeah. It was. Yeah. So he's the guy that I didn't bid quite high enough to get. And we don't. Doesn't look at me. Just as you think Hunter Harvey's going to get the job, he gets hurt again or doesn't pitch well. So it does look like it's Cole Sussler. But Wells has been pitching well. I hate to use that. Wells has been pitching effectively.
You didn't mean to.
He made the list. He made the list of pitchers to target. Baltimore is in Kansas City coming out of the break, so it's a nice matchup. Anything. You 1 game, you don't worry quite as much about matchups, but even so, 4 strikeouts against the Yankees, 6 strikeouts against the Rays. A little less than a week ago, so he's been racking up the whiffs. 49 and 39 and 2/3 innings with 8 walks, which is good. 7 homers. You don't like to see that, but against Kansas City, I'm not as worried about it. So again, I'm not. Wells may be a good pickup for long term, but again, the premise of this piece was you got two reliefs. You got 2 spots. You like to use your word waterfall. You waterfall a bunch of $1 bids, and whichever 2 that you get are active next weekend. and just don't forget to fab, I don't know, 2 start pitches or another outfielder next Sunday night.
Yeah, so Tyler Wells probably not in the mix to close, but he's a guy who in the short week you can maybe extract some value from. But a guy who could close and was on your list too, Anthony Bender in Miami. He was a $0 ad. So maybe I should have gone that route instead of Heath Hembry. But Anthony Bender, and I kind of liked Yimi Garcia, but Anthony Bender has fallen into some saves, hasn't he? No relation to Howard Bender, to steal your joke that you used.
Yeah, right. Yeah, pitching buzz guy. Yeah, so Bender picked up a save on the 5th, then blew a save on the 7th, but ended up getting the win. Garcia's been doing the job, but he doesn't have quite the he doesn't have the job security for sure. Quite the dominant guy. But
he had a pretty ugly outing. Sorry to cut you off. He had an ugly outing on July 4th. He gave up 4 earned runs.
Right, which is why what led to Bender. But the point being, Miami has a doubleheader. Teams don't like to use the same guy twice. Not that Miami has a good shot of getting sweeping, although based on their run differential, again, short, small sample, weird things happen. They have the best run differential in the NL East by far, and they're in last place. Their record in 1-run games is just terrible. Maybe Bender helps that. So I think he's one of my top pickups. Although because he got a couple of saves or opportunities, he's going to cost more than Josh Taylor or Tyler Wells or some of the other guys we're going to talk about.
Yes, Star Platinum in the chat mentioned Paul Sewald.
He's in the piece.
Yeah.
Sewald is in the piece. McHugh is not, but I didn't mention everybody. But yeah, Paul Sewald made the cut. So good call there.
And he also mentioned David Bednar, who we've kind of talked about here or there. And I do like him as a second half guy who could fall into some saves and also fits this mold that we're talking about, guys who, quality, skilled relievers who could help in your starters are off. I do like to get as many arms in there as possible when I can, just to not be taking zeros. Bednar hasn't pitched since the 6th, but he's been excellent this year. So, yeah, I'm with Star Platinum there on David Bednar. Let's see who else. Tristan McKenzie was a $0 ad. Kyle Farmer, Zach Collins, Jonathan Loaizaga, Ramon Urias, Orlando Arcia. So not a lot there in the $1. But
Arcia's been playing for the Braves. That's in a short-term pickup. You never know. I mean, playing a little outfield, but you never know.
Absolutely. Well, let's get into your piece here. Talk some more high leverage arms who could help. You mentioned Josh Taylor in passing just a few minutes ago. Him and Garrett Whitlock at the back end. Garrett Whitlock, a Rule 5 pick, has just been a gem find for that team. Usually you see Rule 5 picks kind of buried in the bullpen, but they haven't needed to. He's been fantastic. So if you had a choice between Josh Taylor and Garrett Whitlock, which way would you lean?
Oh man, can I? Why not both? They've both been ridiculous lately for the Red Sox, and they've needed them. I mean, for the purpose of this piece, I suppose Whitlock. You know what? I mean, Taylor's just crushing it right now. It really is a flip a coin scenario for the purpose of this piece. I mean, long term. And even maybe if you squint, you can see Garrett Whitlock as a starter for the Red Sox over the second half, depending how things play out. Although I think that they're still hoping Garrett Richards finds it, and they're giving him a lot of time over the break to continue to work on reinventing his repertoire. But all right, which one are you going to have higher up on the list? I suppose I'm going to put Whitlock higher up on the list, but it's really the same.
Yeah, it's kind of close. I had Whitlock in labor. I think my team's doomed, but I didn't help myself by dropping Whitlock after I had him for a while. But I had to make room for some pitcher coming back, and I was, struggling with the choice, and I made the wrong choice dropping Whitlock because he's continued that excellent run he had going early in the season. Let's look at your other pitchers you have mentioned here. You kind of mentioned Lucas Luetge earlier. also with the Yankees. He was the one Yankee reliever here not picked up in the stake league because you mentioned Green, Lutke, and Jonathan Loaizaga. So the Yankees barely over 500, but aside from Green, the bullpen's been, or not Green, aside from Chapman, the bullpen's been pretty solid overall. So I don't think we can count the Yankees out of it just yet.
Oh, no, absolutely not. No, absolutely not. Lucky he's struggling lately. So again, kind of going back to what we were talking about before, what have you done for me lately? I can see why he wasn't picked up on a short-term basis.
Yeah.
But even within this little bit of a struggle, the peripherals are there. It's just that's what happens with relievers. So I think that again, he made it because of the 4-game angle, getting that extra opportunity. But Lucky, just a journeyman, but he's found himself in the back end and he's the strikeouts, and that's the key is 45 and 41 and 2/3. That's pretty good.
You shined a light on former fantasy darling Joe Jimenez. I know he was banished to the minors for a while, but did we lose both of us?
I lost you. You were frozen where I was shaking my head.
Yeah, for me, you were gone and I was gone. So maybe.
Oh, okay.
Maybe the internet, I think, is just slow. Rogers Green says it's pronounced Litke. I thought it was Lutke, but okay.
Maybe because he got up. Maybe he got lit up.
So or maybe he's saying he's lit and he's making a pun.
Or he got lit. Like he got lit. He's been getting lit this week.
I see. Buck Farmer, you also mentioned that Detroit bullpen, not something I spend a whole lot of time
on. Well, they got the attention because of the 2-game or doubleheader next week.
Yeah.
So as I mentioned, Jimenez actually, if you take away, they're there. You can't take them away, especially if they were on your team. But he gave up 8 runs in his first 3 outings. Ever since then, he's pitched to a 3.0 ERA and 1.17 WHIP, albeit in 18 innings. So he has pitched well since then, 21 strikeouts. But the walks are still kind of high. Again, Jimenez would not have made the list had it just been, 15 starters, 15 relievers to pick up after for the break. But because of the fact he's on the Tigers and to fit the strategy aspect of it, he and Buck Farmer both. You mentioned Kyle Farmer, the Reds shortstop, who's been actually kind of quietly, I don't want to say crushing it, but he's solid. I mean,
he hasn't been terrible.
Someone should be better. They should have somebody better. But all things considered, Kyle Farmer isn't doing horribly. Been a bit of a heater relative to what the expectations were over the past month. But sure, Buck Farmer was sent down after a terrible start to the season. And, selective endpoints, 1.86 ERA and 0.83 WHIP over the last 9 2/3, eight appearances, 9 strikeouts along the way. His history portends a fall off, right? So picking up Farmer is just sort of is buying into the 4-game strategy as opposed to 3 games with a better pitcher. But I'll probably have him at the back end of my waterfall. I prefer a better pitcher in a 3-game series than a lesser one in 4. But since I'm just going to be stringing $1 bids, he'll be included.
Nice. Nick Sandlin was a guy I tried to pick up in labor last week. Just not somebody I know much about, but just saw what he was doing recently and needed an arm. So had a bid in. I think I got outbid. I know I did, actually. But as you note here, since May 15th, a 1.04 ERA, 1.15 WHIP. I know they've dealt with a ton of injuries, but they continue to churn out some gems there on the pitching side there in Cleveland. So Nick Sandlin, the latest name.
Right. Not pitching in particularly high leverage scenarios, but who cares? Right. The strikeout in the 6th inning counts as much as the strikeout in the 8th or 9th for fantasy purposes. Cleveland visits Oakland coming out of the break. You like the park. It's just there. You could run into a Matt Chapman or a Matt Olson or you can run into a home run pretty quickly regardless. But sure, Sandlin is somebody who I'm looking – he will definitely be on my list.
Yeah, he's been issuing some free passes, a 13.5% walk rate, but 36.5% K rate for Sandlin, 24 years old.
Yeah.
Looks like he was a second-round pick in 2018, so pretty quick rise for him. He has not given up a home run yet, so that's good to see. Yeah, interesting arm there. Nick Sandlin maybe can help you out in the short term. Let's see who else you got here, Todd. You mentioned Paul Sewald, maybe Phil Bickford. Although you did throw out a warning that they're in Coors after the break.
Yeah, Bickford is a weird story in that the Brewers just, I don't want to say gave up on him, but they released him. But he had pitched 2 innings in Major League and given him like 6 runs, showed nothing. I think the weird part is, not so much weird, the interesting part, what do the Dodgers see? The Dodgers must have seen something to put in they didn't even wait for him to clear, and they would have had one of the final choices. The Dodgers picked him up. Well, no, the NL gets him first, so he hadn't made it to the AL yet. But the point being, the Dodgers claimed Bickford, and they were pressing it because he, again, we were talking about their starting pitching. They needed that. They ended up needing the help, and he's been nails for the Dodgers, and is someone to look at. But again, Coors Field. But like I said, in a 1-inning, in a 1-game scenario, you're not nearly as worried about the field, even if it's Coors Field, than you are if it was a long-term pickup.
Finally, the last guy I wanted to ask you about was Eloy Jimenez, man. We got word he's beginning that rehab assignment. I actually was looking already at Fab and noticed him in a few leagues, so don't know if I'm going to be able to get him given how much Fab I have left in those leagues, but rehab assignment begins today with High A Winston-Salem. And I think you have to keep expectations somewhat in check, but don't you think Eloy needs to be picked up where he's been dropped?
Oh, for sure.
Okay.
And we doing this week's tout table was on the players most likely to make the biggest influence on the standings after the break. The players currently on the IL. And I should have said other than Mike Trout, although I did ask players, making it plural, but some people think they're funny and make the point of just all they write is Mike Trout, and that's their answer. Do respect that. That helps. That serves the purpose of the piece. Thanks, guys and gals. I know by doing that, they are making a point that it's Mike Trout and nobody else. But, share a little something. Anyway, the point being, Eloy Jimenez was mentioned by a lot of the touts as somebody to take a look at. And I agree. I dropped him in an NFBC offshoot keeper league, high stakes keeper league. His contract was running out. I needed the reserve spot, and regretfully so. Although I don't think I'm going to be competing this year, so it's not going to end up hurting me. But yeah, he is coming back, and got to feel they're going to have a spot for him. I'm saying tongue in cheek. They being the White Sox, just released Adam Eaton, right?
Yeah,
they've been using Jake Lamb in the outfield. So yeah, Jimenez will.
Gavin Sheets.
Yeah, Jake Berger is someone I'm interested in. There's not enough players named after delicious foods that I shouldn't be eating, but Jake Berger is one. Number scouting looks really good. A little old for the level, but it looks like the kid can hit, and he's been doing so thus far. But anyway, right. Jimenez, is he an all-in bid? Is he leave yourself just enough money to make marginal bids for the rest of the season? I think if you're behind and you need something to that effect, I think you just might be. Don't cripple yourself, but there's around 10 weeks left, leaving $50, so that's $5 a week in the NFBC is probably enough to get by because you're not going to need it every week. So, the all-in being X minus 50, I can see him being that sort of bid.
So behind Trout and Eloy, among guys who are on the IL who will be impactful in the second half. I know you don't love the word impactful, but
yeah, I did all I could to avoid it.
Sorry, but behind those two guys, do you think Chris Sale should be in that conversation? Because I know I saw he was throwing 95, I think, in a bullpen at Fenway. They say they want him at 5 to 6 innings. So I know he kind of previously speculated that, well, he could maybe do his rehab with the team in the bullpen, but they want him back to a full starter's workload.
Yeah, well, I started my answer Trout, Sale, blah blah blah, woof woof woof, as an homage to Lar, who used to love blah blah blah, woof 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 was his kind of expression. So I'm not above putting something in there for 3 people to recognize.
Lar's the best.
Now 4. But the other player that I mentioned, maybe you were going to get to him, as far as category impact, if you will, is Adalberto Mondesi. Now, as Vlad Sedler points out in a subsequent answer, can't trust his health. So, but to me, because of the singularity of the category and the fact you could be at the bottom of a bunch of teams that are tightly bunched, he could make the biggest move for you. And the team that has Mondesi in a redraft league probably is not doing very well in steals. And maybe they will do well if they get Mondesi, but depending upon where they are, you may be able to pick up in a trade. Like Vlad was not insinuating, like he was saying, it's still a risk. Will he get hurt again? But Mondesi has shown that he's able to perform like the day he gets off the IL. He'll probably run his first opportunity just because that's what he does. So I think that's Mondesi is an answer to me. Shane Bieber was mentioned in a few cases. Carlos Carrasco was kind of the purpose was to remind us of the Carlos Carrascos that are coming back that can make that can affect the standings down the stretch. Looking through it to see some of the other names, don't see a whole lot now. The piece was just put up. Maybe we'll get a few more names. I was actually going to write that this is going to be my topic this week was players coming back. Then I realized or remembered on RotoWire, we've got an entire injury page. So while I could have pulled the names and reiterated what's on that page, I thought it would be better to do something a little different with the relievers. But there's a bunch of players, Noah Syndergaard, coming back after the break that could, don't forget, and could help teams out.
Yeah, and this is kind of cheating, but Kyle Schwarber, that's a pretty obvious one. That run he had in June was just so wild. Also, we almost made it through the whole show without mentioning Brad Miller's 3-homer game yesterday.
No, I mentioned it.
Oh, did you? I'm sorry.
Well, man, you were, honestly.
I was distracted. There was
we were talking about Suarez closing. I mentioned that Brad Miller won last night's game 8-0.
I must have been tabbing over.
Oh, I said some of the most smart things you'll ever get. It was podcast of the year quality, and here you are doing other work.
Spacing out, doing other work, and the internet's been a little shoddy. So again, I apologize to all of you out there for that. But Brad Miller seems to always do this, but he's kind of quietly been really pretty good over the years. I mean, OPS over 800 each of the last 3 years, so he's bounced around a lot. But Brad Miller is kind of underappreciated.
He's a Derek Carty special.
Yeah,
a lefty masher.
I don't want to commit to anything, but he's the guy I'm going to reach out to about Sunday. Maybe we could talk about the Blitz.
We can double up. For sure. No, this year, actually, he's a righty masher, not a lefty masher. He's sort of the inverse or the same principle. Just so people realize, platoon splits are often overstated. He's a lefty masher. He's a righty masher. You're supposed to enjoy the platoon advantage. Some hitters enjoy a larger platoon advantage, but unless it's over 5 or 10 years, it's still not to be considered real when you get down to the nitty-gritty of statistics. Miller's always hit righties better, and he's been around long enough that you could work it into your judgments that he's going to hit right-handed better. And he went out there and he slugged 3 home runs the other night. Yes, and Ellen Adair celebrates, but great stuff. She was able to celebrate because her man JT Realmuto stole home.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I saw that too. I'm not obviously I'm a Reds guy, but
Oh, I thought
Phillies,
you were saying you're not an Ellen Adair guy.
Oh, Ellen's great, but it just you know, I don't root for the Phillies, and I kind of have it out for the Phillies, frankly. No offense to Ellen Adair. Looking forward to the Reds playing them again later. Hopefully they can stay above 500. I know, man, Jesse Winker has been struggling lately, but I still love what the Reds are doing lately.
The Red Sox have the Phillies this weekend.
Oh, nice. Well, that should be a fun interleague series. Anything else on your mind, Todd? I know we got to do we're doing MLB Network Radio tomorrow again. Hope you can join us on the channel.
Yeah,
but anything you want to mention before we talk again?
No, just I can't imagine any of our. Well, maybe I'm wrong, but if any of our listeners are taking in some Cape Cod League action early next week, I know you won't be going, but a lot of the RotoWire crew will be heading to Las Vegas for the annual get together. I will be spending it on the Cape. It's not in my budget, but a trip to the Cape is. So I'll be catching some Cape Cod League ball. I'm hoping all this rain forces a couple of day games next week. There's no day games. I have to check the schedule. We're only at night. But if you happen to be at the Cape, check out my Twitter feed, and we'll figure out what park I'll be at and say hello. And I'm weird in public, but you know, I'm tall. I'm shorter than I sound on a podcast. But
you're not that weird. You're not weird in public. Type.
Oh yes, I am.
I am. But you really are.
Oh yes, I am.
Good stuff, Todd. Really appreciate it. Always great talk with you, man. And look forward to talking with you tomorrow. Hope you all have a great All-Star week. Talk to you soon on the RotoWire Fantasy Baseball Podcast, sponsored by WinBet.